YMCA Education Series is free and open to the public, so we encourage you to spread the word and invite family and friends to participate. We host approximately 8 to 10 of these each month with varying topics. The program will last up to an hour, and you might find that you have questions during the presentation, which we'll be happy to address at the end of the program. When you have a question for the speaker, simply type it into the chat, and I will relay the question to the speaker at the end of the program, or you may also raise your hand and ask a question yourself if the chat button isn't working for you. I ask that you please keep your questions general, and we'll do our very best to address all of them in the allotted time. Again, thank you for joining us, and I'd like to introduce to you Diane Reier from Brookdale Senior Living to talk to you about lessons in well-being and longevity and living in blue zones.
Well,
Diane, it's all yours.
Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. It's a pleasure. Can't wait till we're in person, but until then, we'll do it this way, which is kind of easier. It's easier and more available to get on the call. So as Debbie so mentioned, I'm Diane Reier with Brookdale Senior Living. I support 2 of the 12 communities in Illinois. Those would be Northbrook and Des Plaines, 2 very different communities. Brookdale Northbrook has independent living and assisted living, and Brookdale Des Plaines has the same, but as I mentioned, they're very different. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about Brookdale, but I did want to share something special. Hold on just a moment while I get my, don't have the, there we go. I want to show a picture. Can everybody see that? So I'm going to kind of cue in on this gentleman here. So I asked you, if you want to take yourself off of mute, why do you think this older gentleman is so special? What do you think?
Diane, it's Lisa Lipton.
Hi, Lisa.
I have inside scoop on this picture, so I'm not going to share. I'll let someone else.
Okay, thank you.
He's enjoying his life.
He's enjoying his life. That's wonderful. Thanks, Joan. Another thing, he's 88 years old, so he's an older gentleman. He is a veteran of the armed forces, and he resides in Brookdale, Northbrook, and he's living the best life possible. And he happens to be, his name is Bob, and he happens to be my father. So that's the big wow factor, everyone. Yep, Bob has been in Brookdale 5.5 years. My mom and dad moved in there 5.5 years ago. Mom passed away 3 years ago. And while I lost a mother, it was devastating to our family. He lost a spouse of 65 years, and his friends comfort him and helped him work through those issues. He's now thriving. As I said, he's 88. This picture was taken 2 weeks ago when we took him out on the boat. He loves fishing, and he was able to enjoy that and caught a couple trout and a couple panfish. So I'm going to stop the share there and just say he lives independently and is doing very well. So without further ado, I am going to show you a presentation on longevity in the blue zones. It's quite interesting, lots of facts and information, and it's 35 minutes, and I will answer questions at the end. Hold on just a moment while I cue that up. Everybody can see my screen? If you please mute yourself. I think everybody's muted. Here we go. Can everybody hear it okay? You know what? One thing I did not do, my apologies, is I did not synchronize the sound. Let me do my share again, and I'm going to synchronize the sound. And let's try that.
Well-being and longevity from the blue zone, We'll introduce you to the blue zones and the research findings on these areas of the world where people live measurably longer, healthier lives. We'll also discuss the Power 9 principles from people who have lived the longest. I'm your virtual host and presenter, Carol Cummings. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversations in aging. Welcome. I'm so glad to be here with you today to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about lessons in well-being and longevity from the blue zone. Now, if I were there with you in person, I might ask you, do you know what a blue zone is? And when I do this presentation in person, many people say they do not. So I'm excited to talk to you about this and help you think about aging perhaps in a new way. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss some facts about aging, and then we'll talk about the blue zones and what they are and how they came to be. And we're going to list some specific characteristics, 9 to be specific, that embody what people in the blue zones have in their life. And these are called the Power 9. So we're going to go through those in a moment. Now, Lucille Ball, who I'm sure everybody is familiar with, said that the secret to staying young is to live honestly, eat slowly, and lie about your age. Maybe, but there could be another way. So we're going to start by asking you some questions. We're going to have a little aging quiz here. So let's start with this first question. And if you're with a group, you can talk amongst yourselves or just think in your mind if you know the answer to these questions. So the first question is true or false? They're all true or false. The majority of older adults say they are happy most of the time. Do you think that's true or false? It could reveal something that you think about aging that may or may not be true. The answer is that is a true statement. And the picture in front of you is called the U-curve of happiness. And in a large survey that was done, most older adults in their 80s and 90s said that they were happy most of the time. And so did most 10-year-olds. But you can see how this changes and gets a little bit lower as we get into those 30s, 40s, 50s, and starts to rise again in the 60s. Okay, next question. True or false? About 80% of older people say they are healthy enough to carry out their normal daily activities independently. True or false? Older people. And the answer is that is true. Data from the 2016 National Health Interview Survey found that only 20.7% of adults 85 or older, 7% of those aged 75 to 84, and only 3.4% of those aged 65 to 74 needed help with their ADLs or activities of daily living. So the vast majority of older adults are feeling happy and well enough to take care of themselves, which is great, great news. Now here's another one, true or false. Most older adults will spend time in a nursing home. Is that true or false? What do you think? The answer is that it is false. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, our most recent census data, slightly over 5% of people over the age of 65 reside in any type of senior living. This statistic surprised me, and I don't know if it surprises you as well. Only 5% of seniors live in a nursing home or other kind of senior living. And finally, in general, actually, we have a couple more questions. The next one is, in general, most older adults tend to be pretty much alike. Is that true or false? Do you think old people are kind of all the same? Well, actually, that could not be more false. The truth of the matter is that the older we get, the less typical we become. As we age, there's a greater and greater diversity among people. While 20 or 30-year-olds are pretty much the same in terms of their functional abilities, there's a greater divide as we get older. The spectrum goes from those who are very compromised to those who are super athletes. If you have seen one 80-year-old, you have seen one 80-year-old. Here's another question. True or false? Over 13% of the population of the United States is over the age of 65. And the answer to that stat is true. As you can see on this map, it varies throughout the country, but on average, it's about 14.5% of people over the age of 65 living in the United States. And this is growing. By 2050, that's going to grow exponentially up into the 20% range. And it's happening globally as well. As a group, as a population, we are getting older. So what does normal aging look like? Let's take a look at the two people on the screen here. And if I were to ask you who you think is older, who would you choose there? Of course, most of you know that Mick Jagger is well into his 70s, and he is still with the Rolling Stones and rocking and rolling. And this woman, I don't know how old she is. I found her picture on the internet, but I think she certainly could be someone who is in their mid to late 70s. And so, again, just kind of proving that point that there really is no such thing as normal aging in terms of how well we go and function throughout life. Now, I have another question for you, and this question is, what do you think is the maximum lifespan for humans? There has been a lot in the literature over the years about this, and scientists are constantly studying aging and trying to understand it. And to be honest, we really don't fully understand the process of aging, and there are a number of theories that we won't get into here. But what do you think is the maximum lifespan? So here's what we know from nature. Most scientists agree that the maximum lifespan for humans is about 115 to 120 years. And it's from nature, we know that about 6 times the time it takes to reach full maturation tends to be the maximum lifespan. So for humans, if we use the number 20 as full maturation, that gets us to about 120 years. This is Jeanne Calment. She was a French woman. She died in 1995 at the age of 122. And you can read more about her on the internet. She rode her bike till she was 104. She had a sense of humor. When a reporter once asked her how she felt about having wrinkles, she said, "I only have one wrinkle and I'm sitting on it." So Jeanne was someone who lived what scientists consider to be the maximum lifespan. So today in North America and the US, the lifespan is in the neighborhood of 78.2 years, and that varies based on your gender. However, if you do live to the age of 65, most people can expect to have about another 19 or 20 years of life. But as you can see by this graph, the life expectancy is rising. It has risen a great deal since the 1900s. Of course, we know many things have contributed to that, and it continues to rise. So, okay, so people are living longer, and perhaps potentially can have the potential to live even longer than we're living today. And so, we're getting about 20 extra years than we used to get a long time ago. But the question is, how will those 20 years be spent? And I don't know if you're in this stage of life or if you have thought about what will you do with those years after you retire, or, a lot of people aren't even retiring nowadays, maybe changing careers, going back to school, so many different things that are possible for us as we get into those later years of our life. But it really depends, doesn't it, on how healthy we are. And so I want to just talk about this concept of the health span, because really the goal, yes, we want to live longer, but I think most of us would agree we want to live longer and be healthy for those longer amount of years. And, a lot of people nowadays are living long, but maybe having a period of time where they're sick and have chronic illnesses before they die. And the goal is for us to expand the time that we're healthy and shorten the time that we're not healthy before we pass away. So we want to expand not only the lifespan, but the health span. So health in older age, it turns out, is really not random. Only about 25% of how well we age has to do with heredity. The other 75 has to do with who we are, our lifestyle factors, where we live can impact us. If we live in a place that is safe, in a place that allows us to get around, be out and about, how much social interaction do we have? What is our access to health care? So many things that are within our control impact how well we age. I love this quote by George Valiant, a doctor who wrote the book Aging Well. He's a Harvard professor. And he said, old age is like a minefield. If you see footprints leading to the other side, step in them. So let's take a moment and learn about something called blue zones and see if we can learn something from the world's longest lived people. So what is a blue zone? What can we learn from these people? How can we extend our lives? And what are those 9 common characteristics? Well, in 1999, there were some reports of men living to well over 100 in a place called Sardinia in Italy. And this was presented by Dr. Gianni Pez at an international conference. And no one really believed him. In 2000, a Belgian doctor, Dr. Michael Poulin, becomes intrigued, and he jumps on the bandwagon with Dr. Pez, and they return to Sardinia to look deeper into these statistics. As they collect data, they draw a circle around the groups and towns that have a large numbers of 100-year-olds in the world, and you guessed it, they made the circles in blue ink. Hence the term blue zones. These findings led Dan Buettner, who is kind of nowadays the name and the face of the blue zones, and the National Geographic team to travel to the blue zones, where they discovered in their studies 9 common lifestyle characteristics that have contributed to the long life of folks who live in these areas. So where are these zones located? We're going to go through each one of these areas individually. Sardinia, Italy, the islands of Okinawa in Japan, Loma Linda, California, Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Icaria in Greece. So let's start with looking at Icaria. If you travel to this tiny Aegean island, you can discover the secrets of residents who live 8 years longer than Americans, have half the rate of heart disease, and almost no dementia. Now, of course, I'm sure it'll be no surprise to you that diet plays a role, but diet is only one factor. But I'm going to show you kind of with each of these zones, the typical diet that is eaten by the folks who live there, and you're going to notice some commonalities. So in Icaria, 20% of the diet is other vegetables, 9% is potatoes, 11% legumes, 17% greens. But what I want you to notice here is very small percentage of the diet is sweet. A very small percentage of the diet is meat or pasta. There is a percent that is fish, but this is mainly a plant-based diet. Loma Linda, California, if you pull off the San Bernardino Freeway east of LA, you'll encounter a community of Seventh-day Adventists teaching us new lessons about the power of faith, friendship, and fruit. Here is the breakdown of the Seventh-day Adventist diet. They tend to be vegetarian. Very little meat or poultry is eaten. Lots of whole grains, lots of vegetables, and a lot of fruit. Sardinia, Italy. If you visit this Mediterranean island, which is home to the greatest concentration of male centenarians in the world, you'll discover healthy lifestyles that have not changed much since the time of Christ. In Sardinia, 47% of their diet is whole grains. 26% is dairy, so they do eat quite a bit of animal products in the form of dairy. 12% vegetables, again, a very small, limited amount of sweets and meat. In Okinawa, Japan, if you touch down on these South Pacific islands, you'll meet residents, including the world's longest lived women, eating 3 foods that could help every American to live longer. One of those, believe it or not, is sweet potatoes. A large portion of the diet of the folks in Okinawa is sweet potatoes. They also eat a lot of rice and other vegetables. Very little meat, very little poultry, and not a lot of sweets. Nicoya, Costa Rica. If you grab a bike and pedal along a path in this Pacific Coast Peninsula, you'll find colorful houses, exotic fruits, and residents who are twice as likely as Americans to reach a healthy age 90. Is there something in the water? Maybe. But here's the breakdown of their diet. Whole grains, dairy, vegetables, 11% added sugars, maybe a little more than some others, but still low. Still much lower than the American diet. So, what have we learned beyond this so far when Buettner and National Geographic took their teams of scientists to each location? They found that the lifestyles of all Blue Zone residents shared 9 specific characteristics. Let's look at this video by Dan Buettner and hear what he has to say.
I'm going to talk to you about exploration and discovery. To share with you some credible secrets of longevity, secrets you can put to work in your own lives, and secrets you can use to bless the lives of your customers and the lives of people you care about. But now visualize the following. You're on your deathbed. 78 years old, you're surrounded by your children, it's your last day, you have to say goodbye. And I come to you, and I have a formula. And this formula will give you 1 good year of life. And I don't mean a year of life laying in bed, bedridden. I mean a life up with your friends, bowling, playing golf, blessing people's life, whatever it is you like to do. 1 good year of life. What would that be worth to you? The truth of the matter is we have more control over how long we live than we think. Something called the Danish twin study established that about 25% of how long you live is dictated by your genes. 75% is dictated by our lifestyle, something that we have complete control over. The extraordinary thing here is these two, grandma and granddaughter, are separated by 102 years. She was actually her great-great-great-grandmother. This Buddhist priest, Ikigai, was his religion. The meditation that comes with selflessness and compassion in his religion. However, he told me, I said to him after the interview, so what's the true secret to longevity? And he looks at me and he says, sex! Every day. So the premise here, the premise of my whole talk is this. If you can optimize your lifestyle, you can maximize your lifespan within the biological limits of your body. But if you ask the average American, what is that optimal lifestyle of longevity? They wouldn't be able to tell you. I've talked about a lot of stuff today, and we're not going to remember all of it, but let me just give you 8 takeaway points. The 8 big things that can give you 8 good years of life. Number 1, none of the centenarians we met smoked. Move. You don't need to run marathons. You don't need to run triathlons. 40 minutes of a brisk walk or gardening per day. The greatest diet plan on the planet. Hara, hachi, bu. Quit eating when your belly is 80% full. Penultimately, a toast to life, 1 to 2 drinks a day. Plant-based diet. No 2 ways about it. Go nuts. Eat 3 or 4 servings. The Seventh-day Adventists found that people who eat nuts live about 2.5 years longer than people who don't. Invest in your family and your community. Ikigai, find your sense of purpose. I think the lessons of the Blue Zone are more relevant now than they've ever been, especially in the lives of our children. We've been to the North Pole. We've been to the South Pole. We've been to the deepest oceans. We've been to the bottom of the sea. And there's really very few places in this world where you can go and it's a true discovery.
Blue Zones!
Okay, so here are the Power 9, and we are going to go through each one of these things individually. These are the 9 common characteristics shared by people living in these areas that we call Blue Zones. The first one is called downshift. Even people in the Blue Zones experience stress. Stress leads to chronic inflammation associated with every major age-related disease. What the world's longest lived people have that maybe we don't have is routines that are built into their lives that help them to shed stress. As an example, Okinawans take a few moments each day to remember their ancestors. Seventh-day Adventists pray. Acarians take a nap, and Sardinians do happy hour. It is believed by scientists that 75 to 90% of doctor visits are related to stress. So finding a way to downshift on a regular basis is a very important lifestyle factor in aging well. Purpose. The Okinawans call it Ikigai. The Nicoyans call it Plan de Vida. And for both, it translates to, why do I wake up in the morning? Knowing your sense of purpose is worth up to 7 years of extra life expectancy. Very important as we go through life to constantly be reinventing our purpose. We all go through life transitions. We become empty nesters. Sometimes we may retire from a lifelong career, but we need to continue to find purpose in life in order to stay well and live long. Many, many studies have backed this up, apart from the findings of the Blue Zone. Wine at 5. This is by far the most popular characteristic of the Blue Zone's people. Many people enjoy that fact that having a glass of wine every day is actually proved to be healthy. People in the Blue Zones, except for the Seventh-day Adventists who typically abstain from alcohol, drink moderately and regularly. Now, moderately means 1 drink a day. And for the most part, it's wine. They used to say that maybe men could get away with 2 glasses of wine a day, but I recently saw a new study that said it's really 1. And you can't save them all up and drink them all at once on the weekend. So moderate intake of wine. Cannonau wine seems to be one that has many of the antioxidants, and that is enjoyed by the people of Sardinia, Cannonau. But if you're not someone who can drink moderately, then it's best not to drink at all, because excessive drinking actually has a negative impact on health. Plant slant, we've really covered this by looking at the breakdown of diets of people in the Blue Zone. And we've seen that their diets have a very heavy concentration of plants. Meat, if it is eaten at all, is treated more as a condiment, with the vast majority of the diet is plant-based, and in some cases, dairy, fish, those sorts of things. Okay, I love this one, family first. The successful centenarians in the Blue Zone tend to put their families first. This means that they keep aging parents and grandparents close. They commit to a life partner, which can add up to 3 years of life expectancy. They invest in their children with time and love, and they care for one another. So family first is a wonderful commitment and way to live, which I know so many of us do. And in the midst of COVID-19 that we've been through, I think we've had a renewal of the importance of family. Now, another characteristic is the 80% rule, or what Okinawans call hara hachibu, excuse me. And what this basically means is that the Okinawans leave the table when they are 80% full. They don't overeat. The 20% gap between not being hungry and feeling full could be the difference between losing weight or gaining it. People in the Blue Zone eat their smallest meal in the late afternoon or early evening, and they don't eat any more for the rest of the day, which I think ultimately becomes what is today known as intermittent fasting. There is a lot of research out there talking about intermittent fasting and its health benefits. People in the Blue Zone sort of naturally do that. Move naturally. Blue Zones folks tend to not necessarily pump iron or go to the gym or run marathons. Nothing wrong with those things. But what they've shown us is that if they live in an environment that is constantly getting them to move, this is a healthy way to live. gardening. A lot of people in blue zone areas sort of go to the market every day. There's a lot of walking. There's a lot of stair climbing, that sort of thing. So moving naturally, how can you set up your environment where you are active all throughout the day? We've all heard the phrase, sitting is the new smoking. We in American life tend to be very sedentary. More and more of us have jobs where we are sitting behind a desk, and we know that we have to get up and move every hour. I have something that I wear on my wrist that reminds me to do this. And then right tribe. The world's longest lived people choose or were born into social circles that support healthy behaviors. Okinawans create mois, it's called, groups of 5 friends that commit to each other for life. Now, research from the Framingham studies shows that smoking, obesity, and even happiness or loneliness are contagious. So the social networks of long-lived people have favorably shaped their health behaviors. Turns out that what my mother told me in my youth is true. You become like the people you hang around with. And so choosing to be around people who choose a healthy lifestyle can influence you for the better. And the last of the Power 9 is belong. All but 5 of the 263 centenarians that were interviewed in the Blue Zones Project belong to some faith-based community. Denomination does not seem to matter, but research shows, this is a pretty startling statistic, that attending faith-based services 4 times a month, so in other words, going to church on Sunday or synagogue or wherever your place of worship is, will add between 4 and 14 years of life expectancy. Being part of a faith community has a very positive benefit on our longevity and on our well-being. So here again are the Power 9. I want you to just take a look at these for a moment and think about these for your own life. How are you doing in these 9 areas? Certainly we can't change 9 things at once, but perhaps there is one thing that you could do better at. Do you need to improve your diet by eating more fruits and vegetables and cutting back on the sweets and the meat? Do you need to start moving more every day? Do you need to have a glass of wine with dinner? How about people that you spend time with? And do you have a stress management program going on in your life? Do you have ways every day that you're able to shed your stress? Do you belong to a faith community? And do you have a purpose in your life? What will you change? I want you to write something down before we end today. What will you change in your health habit as a result of this presentation? I love this picture of Willa Lowry. Willa wanted to ride a motorcycle again, and we helped her make that happen. And she said, they clocked me going 100. Living life to the fullest for as long as we can, I think is what we all want. So I hope that you will take away something from this presentation that gets you a little bit closer to that for yourself or for the people that you love or work with. Now, here are some resources. Bluezones.com, that's where I got all the pictures of the blue zone areas and the words that describe them. And there's very good information at bluezones.com, recipes. There's a vitality test that you can take, book suggestions, services. And there are several books written by Dan Buettner, The Blue Zones of Happiness, Thrive, and the Blue Zone Solution. So you can pick one of those up if you want to learn more. And I want to thank you for being with me today and look forward to seeing you next time on Conversation in Aging.
And we are back. And my apologies. I normally give a little bio about Carol Cummings. Who is she? And I'm going to do that after the fact. My apologies for that. Carol Cummings is an RN with Brookdale. She is the Senior Director of our Optimum Life and Engagements division. Carol believes senior living should empower residents to make choices that bring meaning and purpose to their lives. Early in her nursing career, Carol developed a passion for working with older adults. After 15 years in hospital and home health settings, Carol took a position as the wellness director for Brookdale Community. So that's at Brookdale main level. And then she describes as her dream job. Her work in the community led to her current role where she supports the well-being of our residents through programs, service design, and education related to optimum life. So just a little bit about Carol. She's an amazing speaker and does a great job. Now, I did go ahead and put all these resources on paper for you. If you would like me to email that to you, just go ahead and put your email address in the chat box and I'll go ahead and send that information to you. Did you have any questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. Let me just put a question out there for you. What were some of the takeaways that you learned from this presentation? Anybody have any good takeaways? One that I like to look at were, I didn't realize how important a plant-based diet. I've been seeing it all over the internet, commercials, everything, plant-based this, plant-based that, and not realizing how that really will affect me in my later years. So I'm definitely going to introduce a more plant-based diet into my life. So of those 9 Power 9, does anybody want to share what they're going to work on in their Power 9? Debbie, come on.
I have a
John?
question. I actually have a
Okay.
question. So I have aging parents and in-laws. What are some things that you look for in a place to live? I mean, whether it is like a senior living facility or a town, that would be good indicators of the Power 9. You know, if you're not getting a lot of those things in the community you're at, it sounds like there's some good clues with, you know, who are you associating with, who are you hanging out with, what groups are you involved with. But what are some things you could look at if you were looking at like an assisted living or a senior living place that would indicate longevity and good Power 9 habits?
Well, definitely, if you're touring, ask them the average of people. What's the oldest people that you have living at your community? What do you attribute that to? Do they have a dietitian on staff that monitors or adheres to maybe a plant-based diet, or knows about the blue zones? And I think also having a very involved clinical staff that has many years of knowledge, because you know what we learned 40 years ago has ultimately changed. So having that person be up on their education and their accreditation is huge. So they're changing with the times and making sure that their residents are changing with those times as well. You know, I think that it's also important to have a well-balanced diet. Do they offer wine at meals? That's a good one, because we all know that, and it seems to be red wine more than white. Does that answer your question, Deb?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to mention, what was the other thing? Oh, another takeaway, maximum lifespan. I never realized that equation of 6 times the full maturation date of the person or being that you're looking at. So that being human, being 120 is our, doesn't that seem like wild, 120. What? But, you know, as modern medicine keeps getting more evolved and more involved, we're going to see that. And I guess the big takeaway for me in this presentation is, do I want to be in that disease portion of that graph, or do I want to be in that healthy? So what I'm doing now is going to affect that later, you know. And is it ever too late to begin? Absolutely not. Studies say you can make changes in your 80s that can affect you positively. So I just really thought that that was really strong, and knowing that, you know, I'm in the senior living business. I understand. I'm around a lot of seniors, and I do see the massive difference between people that are watching their health and people that are just living, you know. I found it interesting also that having faith in your life, I think that's going to really hit the 30 and 40 somethings, you know, that don't take precedent. It just seems like when I go to church, I'm seeing, you know, people my age and up. So something to take note. And I loved her comment on the old adage about your mom telling you are what you become. You are who you hang with. So true, right? If you're gonna, and it just in any facet of your life, you know, you're gonna hang with people that are negative and talk about people and always look at that glass half full. You become that because you're just surrounded by that, right? So that's a great thing to think about and change. Any other questions or takeaways? Well, thank you all very much for your time. We didn't hit the whole hour, but I hope the information provided really gave you insight. And again, if you want more information, just go ahead and put it in the chat box. I will email you that information. I have recipes. I have the Power 9 sheet that I can send you, a bunch of other information that really makes a difference and helps you get on that right track. And remember, everyone, it's baby steps. It is not something that just happens overnight. And the other thing I thought was very important is purpose. Creating a purpose, or making sure that you have purpose in your life. That is so important to that Power 9. If you don't have purpose, what's the reason for waking up and doing whatever you're doing that day, right? I'm just copying down the emails so I have those. So thank you all so very much. It was a pleasure. Again, Diane Reier with Brookdale Senior Living. I believe Donna has my contact information. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Diane. I really enjoyed the presentation immensely for myself as well as my family. And I am looking for some of those recipes because I'm definitely having a salad at lunch.
With nuts.
Yes. But thank you all for being here. That does conclude our YMCA Education Series presentation on behalf of the North Suburban YMCA YES Series. We want to thank you for supporting our organization and programs such as these. A special thank you to Diane for speaking with us today. Programs like this are free and open to everyone in our community. So if you enjoyed today's program and would like to support the Y, please consider helping with a donation to the North Suburban YMCA. We hope to see you at our next speaker series on July 22nd on the topic of healing hip pain naturally. Thank you. Have a fabulous day, all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.